Let's get to the very latest, and we could have another potential scandal in sports wagering as it relates to college sports. We'll start off with Fresno State. The basketball program is currently under some scrutiny as to some potential ties to sports gambling. The NCAA and the university are looking at it. The school removed one player from the team and also suspended two others for at least Saturday's loss to Air Force. The Fresno State in a statement said that a couple of players, one named Jalen Weaver, another named Zayon Collins, are being withheld from competition as the university reviews an eligibility matter. Now, meanwhile, they've lost 10 games in a row. They're 5-23, but that's not really the issue right now, because if there's alleged ties to sports wagering, got to look into this one, especially as the regular season comes to a close. Meanwhile, Philadelphia 76ers and Joel Embiid are looking at some different options for his left knee. Just hasn't been healthy all season. Don't be surprised to hear that he could miss the remainder of the season. More tests this week. It looks like they'll collaborate with some specialists, figure out what to do. He's only played in 19 games this season, and the Sixers are going nowhere, so don't be surprised to hear this. Now, meanwhile, in the NBA last night, Oklahoma City finally took down Minnesota. It's been like the one team they can't beat all season long. They ended up getting the win yesterday. As you can see, the final 130-123. Big game for SGA once again, closing in on his first ever NBA MVP, and they're still playing great basketball, and they finally found a way to take care of the Timberwolves. After the game, SGA talked about the win and finally overcoming the one team they seem to have an issue with.
Nothing really impressed me about this group. We're so many games in. I know the character of guys we have. I know what we're capable of, no matter what the game looks like. And we as a group did what I expected. We weren't perfect tonight. Obviously, our second quarter could have been a lot better. But yeah, we did enough to get a W, and we'll take it.
Another high-scoring game in the NBA yesterday. In fact, is this the same score? Very similar. 129-123. The Cavaliers beat the Memphis Grizzlies, as you can see there. Nice game from Donovan Mitchell and company, and really the key for Cleveland down the stretch is trying to find defensive rebounding. That's been one of their things they're trying to prove. By the way, on the offensive side as well, they can shoot it. We know that. After the game, Kenny Atkinson said much better job on the boards for his team.
We've been emphasizing it. It's just taken a while to kick in, but we've been emphasizing it. I told you, kind of post All-Star, we really made a focus with the guys of win the possession game, because you're not going to shoot the ball well all the time, especially in the playoffs. Sometimes you're not going to shoot free throws well, like tonight, because you're defending so hard. So that was the difference. And I don't know where they rank in the possession game. I'll bet you they're top 3. But I think we were plus 10. That was the difference, because we did not. We started out 2 for 20 from 3. So to win that game, that was a playoff type win.
Meanwhile, in college basketball, St. John's keeps winning and going from just qualifying to the NCAA tournament, which would have been a nice season for them, to winning the Big East, closing in on that, and a high seed in the NCAA tournament. How about that story this year for Rick Pitino and company? They win at MSG 89-75 over UConn, and they swept UConn for the first time since the 1999-2000 season. They've won 3 straight, 13-14. They could get a top 8 or 7 ranking, maybe when that comes out later today. Could be possible. Dan Hurley, head coach of UConn, not happy as that's not a happy picture. Not happy as you can see with the 3-point success that St. John's had.
Just that first half shooting for them, making 8 threes, just gave them that cushion. Obviously for us, you play against this team with that defense and that rebounding, and with those type of wings and Ejiofor and the pressure they could put on the paint. If they shoot the ball like that from the perimeter, they're going to be a problem for anyone. So,
Kadari Richmond is more injured than any player I've coached right now, and he fights through it. He's got double groin pulls. He's got problems all over his anatomy, and he played the game and played hard. So I don't know about anything except he killed it, and he needs time off as much as we can give him right now, because he's really hurting. But he showed up tonight and gave it to us.
Maybe the biggest upset of the weekend in college basketball, Indiana taking out Purdue Final 73-58. Indiana's trying to get in the NCAA tournament, one of those bubble teams. Not a bubble for Michigan State. Are they coming on strong or what? They beat Michigan on Friday night, 75-62. They now control their destiny for the Big Ten. They're 22-5 on the season, 13-3 in the conference. What a great second half of the season they have had. But Tom Izzo saying it wasn't easy having to beat the Wolverines.
We beat a damn good team today. They are hard to guard. They missed some shots too. I thought the first half we were awful. And we only had one guy, Jace, that played well. And when I went in at halftime, I said we got a chance because I thought we'd be about 15 down the way we played. And maybe they didn't make some shots, although they shot 53%. But the turnovers we had that led to touchdowns were ridiculous. And so we felt like if we could just do a few things, move the ball a little better, make a couple shots, which for us to make that many threes is a miracle, but the way we've been shooting lately. But I really felt like, Trey Holloman did a hell of a job, and Jace Richardson was unbelievable. And we got lucky, Jeremy Banks in a shot. We got lucky. And they missed a couple of shots that I think they normally hit. So, well-coached team. He changed it up on us, went zone and man. But I thought our guys responded after a couple tough runs.
Crimson Tide also picking up a win yesterday, 96-83. Mark Sears had 30 points. Number 4, Alabama closing in on the SEC tournament, maybe facing off with Auburn or Florida for that championship. We'll see. Meanwhile, Auburn won again, so they'll still be the number 1 team in the country. Janai Broome had 31 points and 14 rebounds. Auburn wins 82-70 over Georgia on Saturday. LJ Cryer had 28 points. Number 5, Houston beat Iowa State 68-59. Houston's 30-4 in the Big 12 in his 2 seasons in the league. They've been fantastic. Chaz Lanier also had a nice game, 77-69 for Tennessee as they beat Texas A&M. A&M has now lost 2 games in a row. And also Janelle Mitchell had 18 points as Arkansas. They needed a big win for their resume. They beat Missouri, number 15 ranked Missouri. Final score 92-85. In spring training action, most of the games today in Florida are going to be rained out. It's a miserable rainy day here in Florida, maybe tomorrow too. Yesterday on the diamond, Alex Bregman ended up hitting his first spring training home run. He was 3 for 3. Also had a double and a single as he put on that Boston Red Sox uniform for the first time. The Brewers signed Manuel Margot to a minor league contract. Kevin Pillar, not going to retire, says that he's going to sign a minor league deal with the Rangers. And our buddy Tim Healy, who was on the show yesterday, mentioned today on social media that the Mets, who signed free agent prize pitcher Sean Manaea to a long-term deal, has an oblique issue and is going to miss the beginning of the season, starting off the season on the IL for the Mets. Second pitcher, by the way, that they have had injured right before the spring training or early spring training season begins. So welcome back to Newswire here on SportsGrid. Great to have Sam McQuillan in the house from Legal Sports Report. We'll dive into a potential repeal of sports betting laws in Maryland and also some stock numbers as well. Great to have you back here, Sam, on the show. Although, do we have a scandal on our hands here? I hate to jump the gun on this stuff here, honestly, because it feels like once every few months we hear something, and we did hear something on one of those college basketball teams in Michigan that really, nothing ever kind of came of it. So I don't want to get too nuts here. But there is a story that is being reported about Fresno State and their basketball players and a couple of players who are not eligible currently to play for them. I see their record is 5-23, so that's only adding a little fuel to this fire too. But I'll let you tell the story here and sort of what you think the process will be in figuring out whether or not Fresno State really has an issue.
Yeah, so first of all, I'll just preface this by saying, like you allude to, Craig, this is all investigations, initial inquiries that come out because of an alert that happened. Nothing's been decided, but what has happened is there's been some actions taken. Like you mentioned, a couple of players have been suspended at Fresno State for being tied to this investigation. 2 players were suspended. 1 player was actually removed ahead of Saturday's game against Air Force, which Fresno State ended up losing by just 3 points. So they probably could have used a couple of those guys. They were some of the leading scorers on their team. But essentially what happened here is there was an inside tip. We're not sure where the tip exactly came from. It was first reported by ESPN that was sent to the school, presumably mentioning these players as somehow being involved in whether it's point shaving, whether it's manipulating your your player props, your points or rebounds. We don't know the parameters yet that they're investigating, but the school got tipped off to this. Then the school involved the NCAA, who then subsequently got involved. The school put out a statement saying that these two guards, Jalen Weaver and Zion Collison, are being withheld as the school reviews, quote, eligibility matter. So not even going further to say what exactly it is. Like you mentioned, Eastern Michigan had several games that earlier this year we talked about that were flagged for suspicious betting activity. You have the former Temple player who's under federal investigation for similar activity. So we're getting to this point now in the legal sports betting stage where it's no longer these stories that drop like when Calvin Ridley was suspended, and it kind of felt like for a minute the whole sports world or sports betting world was set on fire. Nobody really knew what to do. People were putting out articles, this is the end of legal sports betting. We're kind of gotten to the stage where we're hearing about these stories a lot more often. That could be a number of things. It could be these programs are working to catch things more. And it also could mean that we're just kind of becoming more numb to this happening. It's becoming less of a big thing that moves stuff in the media cycle. Now, obviously still important and still very curious to see what goes on here, what develops more. A lot of it could just be, things are getting alerted, things are getting flagged. You have the Terry Rozier situation we talked about earlier this year, where he was eventually cleared in this matter by the NBA, saying, we didn't find that he did any wrongdoing, but things are popping up, things are being caught. So now we're kind of wondering, where do we go from here? How do things react? How do things change, especially when you have March Madness right around the corner? And then again, you're talking about college athletes. While in some cases, many of them are being paid, sports betting and the allure of sports betting is still a big thing for these kids who are, in a lot of cases, 18, 19 years old.
Yeah, no, look, it's prevalent stories, but as Sam mentioned, very well said, got to be careful, of this stuff, accusing people of things and kids without really knowing the deal. But that's the latest there, and I'm sure we'll follow that story toward the end of the regular season in college as well. All right, so, this is, something that I did not have on my radar, Sam, which is legalizing sports betting 6 years ago. We knew that this was going to happen all over the country. I did not realize that at some point there was even a possibility of repealing sports betting happening. We've heard about this maybe in Vermont. It could maybe potentially happen in Maryland too. What gives? What's going on here?
Yeah, this push started in Vermont, which I wouldn't even give it that much credence there. A lot of these times, these are just messaging laws. Lawmakers want to make a big splash, want to make a name for themselves, want an issue to get behind. In this case, we've seen online gambling grow exponentially across the country. So naturally, there's going to be some pushback. And Maryland is now the second state where lawmakers have introduced a bill that would repeal online sports betting specifically. It would keep in-person sports betting legal. I think that's an important distinction here, especially for the lawmakers, and especially as we've seen the prevalence of online betting, where versus going to a casino where you have money, now it's easy to just do it on your phone. And in a lot of cases, you can lose a lot of money very quickly. So Joanne Benson introduced this bill last week that would repeal online sports betting. It would repeal the ballot amendment that voters passed in 2020, which legalized sports betting. So I think that's an interesting distinction here as well. The voters in the state wanted it. This would be something that kind of repeals what they did. I think that would be hard to muster support for politically. But again, big messaging thing. Maryland has taken over $10 billion in bets since it legalized sports betting, and that's produced $143 million in taxes. You have lawmakers in Maryland, similar to lawmakers in Vermont, saying that it's essentially being pushed as the industry camouflaged as a form of taxation, something that's going to help the state out. But what really it's doing is, disproportionately hurting low-income families, people who are in desperate financial situations. So would like to see some more research behind that. I know a lot of the responsible gaming research is still underway with sports betting so nascent, but it's a lot of messaging out here. We view gaming and gambling expansion as something that's bad, legalizing it, only promoting it versus taking it out of the shadows. Maryland is a state that's also considering iGaming, online casino expansion this year. So it'll be interesting to hear whether this idea comes up in that conversation as well. A lot of times gaming changes are used as a sort of bargaining chip to expand things. So you might have, for instance, the state has also talked about hiking up their sports betting tax rate. Maybe they'll do that as opposed to just getting rid of online gaming in general. Maybe the industry will see that as a bargaining chip where, okay, we'll agree to a higher tax if online gaming, like iGaming expansion, is put on the table. So states are reconsidering kind of what they're doing on the tax level, even on the legalization level. I wouldn't be surprised if I see other states consider this kind of thing, but again, would be surprised if it gets any major political support in any state, at least at this point.
Yeah. I think that's really the story to watch here is what kind of support it has. Just, something being submitted doesn't mean it's going to happen. All right. Meanwhile, how about this? Taxes going up and stocks going down. A tale as old as time. Sam, what's going on with Rush Street Interactive?
Yeah, the Wall Street, the stock market does not love tax increases, and we've heard a lot talked about them in the U.S. as of late. But Rush Street Interactive, which owns BetRivers, still a sports betting app that's very much operational in big states like New York as well as Pennsylvania. Their company took a major stock hit this week or the end of last week, as Colombia, in their state of emergency, automatically triggered a hike on their online gaming tax. So interesting, one thing that happens in this one country can really impact what happens in the U.S. BetRivers is an app that's been talked about as not really been making a break in the competitive tier of sports betting apps, even in the second tier of the BetMGMs, the Caesars, the guys trying to keep up with FanDuel and DraftKings. BetRivers has been lagging behind. They have been able to survive by essentially growing their online gaming business, their iGaming business. They've been kind of waiting more than anybody for more states to expand and really get in there. BetRivers owns a lot of casinos around the country. But with the stock price taking such a hit, some are supposing the idea that maybe it's just not worth hanging on to online sports betting in name of hoping for the iGaming expansion. So this could be a case where we see an app, a sports betting app that offers customers another place to find prices, another place to find bets, use promos, become a casualty because of the overall economic gaming landscape across the country. And this is at a time, of course, when ESPN Bet is in similar turmoil. Fanatics is trying to rapidly expand. They're not doing such a good job maintaining that market share. So what we could see at the end of the day is more apps just falling to the wayside. And the story that we've heard the whole time we've been in sports betting with DraftKings and FanDuel just continuing to fatten their lead. But you have to wonder what happens when we have less competition, how that all impacts the consumer at the end of the day. But don't want to jump the gun here. BetRivers is still very much active. It's just not looking great for them right now.
Yeah, and look, taxes are going to hurt, especially with these companies that are not named FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, and some others. Sam, great stuff as always. We'll read more over at LegalSportsReport.com. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks a lot, Craig.